Okay, so hi everybody, I'm Sue Searle. I'm Principal Ecologist at Ecology Training UK, and I'd like to welcome you to our Career Motivation webinar this afternoon. And I've got some tips, I've got 5 tips that I've come up with to help get you motivated with getting on track with your career. So it's lovely to see so many people here, and I'm looking forward to talking to you this afternoon and hopefully getting you motivated and inspired. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to give you a little bit of background about me and what I do, and then we can move on to my top tips, and we can see if that helps you and perhaps have some questions at the end. Okay, so I have only been an ecologist since 2003, so it wasn't my first career. My first career was as a nurse and a midwife. And I had a midlife crisis and decided that I loved wildlife so much that I didn't want to work in a hospital anymore. I wanted to work outside with wildlife. So I went to university and did a degree in biological sciences, and then pretty soon discovered that that wasn't going to get me a job because they didn't actually teach me anything useful whatsoever. So I did a master's in ecology conservation and habitat management, which was actually a training to become an ecological consultant. So they taught me how to do different surveys, how to write reports. They taught me about legislation, how to identify things, and all sorts of things like that. So it was a much better real life kind of course, really. And I now actually teach that course because I thought it was such a good course, and they don't do it anymore. So that actual course that's been updated since then, I do as a certificate in Ecological Consultancy, which is a comprehensive course for people that want to get into consultancy. And there's a few of our certificate students here today. So do you want to give us a wave, guys? So we've got some from this year and some from last year. So welcome, guys. Nice to see you. We also run a whole range of ecology training courses that sort of match in with the certificate and with people that want to learn things. So we do a load of taught and online courses as well. So I will tell you a bit more about that later, and I'm sure most of you know anyway, because I think most of you have come through our newsletter. So you're already sort of in the system, if you like. Yeah, so I've been an ecologist since 2003. I started as a trainee ecologist, even though I was working for myself. I had my own consultancy, but at that point I felt that I was only a junior ecologist. You know, I wasn't really, I couldn't call myself a principal ecologist, that's for sure. And every few years I'd have a review of where I got to with my knowledge and skills, and decided at some point that I was an ecologist, a senior ecologist, and then a principal ecologist. So I had to promote myself. It sounds weird, but I mean, when you've been doing something for like 15 years, you do get to that level. So I just, I know how to change careers. I know how to work in this consultancy business, and I know how to get in. And I wanted to particularly talk to people today because we have obviously lockdown and this whole uncertainty and this difficulty in actually jobs and moving jobs and things like that. So I thought it'd be nice to sort of have a chat with you guys about some ideas of what you could do to get on track and to, you know, keep yourself motivated during this difficult time, because it's not easy, particularly if you have lost your job, or if you're working from home, or you can't really work properly. You know, it's very difficult. So I'll get on with my 5 tips, and I hope you enjoy them and find them useful. I do actually do quite a bit of coaching, and I do career coaching with my certificate student, and this is the first time I've done a webinar where I've actually coached people that aren't on certificate. So I hope you'll find it appropriate for the level you're at, because there's a lot of you in the room and I don't know what your background is. So maybe we could just have a quick show of hands Who's already in ecology and working as an ecologist? So you've got a little, at the bottom of your screen, you'll see a little reactions. It's like a little smiley face. So if you can put your hand up. If we start shouting out, there'll be absolute chaos. So it would be good if we could like use our little emoji. So who's already working in ecology? So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, hi, Karina. So most people, can I say that most people are not yet working in ecology? Can we have a show of hands for that? And the people that are already showed hands, take them. They're not yet working in ecology and want to work in ecology. Okay. Okay, so that's good. I know the sort of where to pitch it a bit more now, but I know a lot of you that have put your hands up, they're already in ecology. It might be that you're still at the early stages of your career and you want to kind of get a bit of motivation. So my first tip, would you like to hear my first tip?
Yes, please.
Okay, so my first tip is to call yourself an ecologist. Okay. I want you all to practice every day, and like every hour, if you like, saying, I am an ecologist. Okay. So when you start saying, I am an ecologist, instead of I am a checkout girl at Tesco's, or I am an accountant, or I am a doctor, or I am a nurse, or whatever, it's amazing what happens. Okay. So what happens is, if you say, I am an ecologist, what happens is you start to think to yourself, oh, well, if I'm an ecologist, what sort of people do I mix with? What sort of books do I read? What do I do in my spare time? What do I watch on TV? What do I read? Yeah. So maybe if you've got a little piece of paper there, you could just have a little jot down of, if you started calling yourself an ecologist, I am an ecologist, what sort of things would you be saying to yourself? Maybe even what would you wear? I know I wear different clothes to my, let's say, secretarial friends. So just have a little think for a minute about, if I was an ecologist, what would I wear? What would I read? Who would I mix with? How would I behave? Maybe even what would you eat? Because I've noticed that a lot of ecologists are vegetarians or vegans. So you never know, even just becoming a vegetarian could make you feel more like an ecologist. This is a bit flippant, I know, but it just gives you an idea of the sort of thing to think about. So I am an ecologist. Yeah, so that's my first tip. And there's a psychology to calling yourself something something that you aren't yet, if you see what I mean. There's a psychology, because what happens is, in your brain you start to become the person that you want to become. Okay, so psychologists have noticed this and done lots of research on it, and what they found is that if you start to imagine yourself as the person you want to become, you start to leave behind the person that you are. So if you're the Tesco checkout girl, or the accountant, or the doctor, or the nurse, and you start to gradually transform into the person that you want to become, because you can't be an ecologist if you're a Tesco checkout girl, or an accountant, or a doctor, or a nurse. You have to become something else. Okay, and the best way to do that is to actually start telling yourself you are, and start, dressing, speaking, reading, watching, mixing with the sorts of people and things and foods and everything. You can probably imagine a typical ecologist, can't you? I noticed somebody down there said they're a vegan, and they've got and they wear wellies all the time. That's the sort of person. They're already getting there, aren't they? They're nearly there. But if you always walk around in tight leggings, mini skirts and stiletto heels, then can I suggest, not the guys obviously, can I suggest that you start thinking about wearing your walking boots or your all sorts of more outdoorsy stuff. And of course we go outdoors quite a lot. We don't sit in the house much, so we go out and we look at nature, and we have a big thick woolly coat on so that we keep nice and warm, and we have waterproofs. So yeah, so becoming an ecologist is part of your psychology. So the way to do it is to start saying you're an ecologist and to start being an ecologist, even though you're not currently at the moment. Okay. And I know some people have got further down that route already. Perhaps some of the certificate students have already been saying that to themselves, and they realize that they're making progress towards that. So can I get somebody from certificate to jump in? So maybe, how about Karina? Are you up for jumping in? Karina Morris, are you there? Hello.
Hello. Sorry. Hello. Just having some headphone issues.
So Karina, when you started certificate, what were you doing as a job?
I was working in educational admin when I started. I didn't do the course last year. I did it the year before.
Yeah. So you were in admin.
Yeah.
And I know you work as an ecologist now, don't you?
That's right. Yeah. So I'm now an assistant ecological consultant, and very much have Sue's course to thank for that. So thank you very much, Sue.
That's okay.
But yeah.
What do you think about my first tip then? Is that a good tip, do you think?
I think it's a really good tip. I think when I started doing those things, I started reading a lot more. I gained a lot more skills. I started attending a lot more courses. I was going outside with my guidebooks quite regularly and picking a lot more up, and then applied for a job and got one. So yeah, I think it's a very good tip.
Thank you very much, and congratulations on getting a job as an ecologist. Well done.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's have a listen to my second tip. So my second tip is to make a plan. Okay, so you've probably all heard of goal setting. I don't know if you know, but around 10% of people are super successful, and actually there's kind of 3% that are even more successful. And then there's the 90% or the 97% that are not so successful. They tend to just do the same thing every day and get up, clean their teeth in the same way, have the same cup of tea, have the same breakfast, wear the same sort of clothes, go the same way to school, to work, and all this sort of thing. And they get into a bit of a rut, and they don't actually have a plan for moving forward in their career. So they might even, if say you're working in Tesco's, or you're working as a barista in a coffee shop or something like that, you might have a plan in the back of your head, but you haven't actually sort of formally structured it and made it into a goal, so that you actually start to move forward to becoming the person you want to be. So I'm assuming that everybody here wants to be an ecological consultant or work in ecology of some sort. So it's a good idea to have a plan. And I know it's difficult at this time of the year in January, because there's not a lot going on, everything's hibernating, but it's super extra difficult because we're in lockdown, and a lot of people can't go to work or go out and about. So I've actually found it's quite difficult to even just go out for a walk. You're supposed to stay within your own area, but you get to know your own area really well if you go out regularly. And but the thing is, if you make a plan, so you might have like an ultimate goal: I want to be an ecological consultant, an ecologist, I want to run my own business, or something like that. And you need to make a plan, otherwise it just ends up being a dream. Okay, so I know a lot of people see their plans as dreams, and they only really become plans if you start setting goals and specific targets and specific sort of dates for when you're going to achieve things. So my suggestion, as it's January, is to actually sit down maybe this evening, and I'll just get my diary a minute, and maybe this evening, if you haven't done a plan for this year, is to have a little bit of fun and do some dreaming about what you could achieve in the next 12 months. Okay, so for some of you who've got some training already, it might be to get your first job. With people that want to change their careers or move towards getting licenses or something like that, then maybe your goal would be to be doing some subcontracting work, or more knowledgeable or better at botany, or better at looking for otters, or whatever it is. Okay, so what you can do is I've got my plan for the year at the front of my diary, and it's basically just a little spider diagram like this. So there's the year. Okay, and I've got different headings. So I've got fun, travel, relationships, achievements, Ecology Training UK, investments, wealth and health. Okay, and then under each one I've got a little bullet list of things that I would like to achieve in each of those areas. So a lot of people make plans for their jobs, but actually your life is usually far more important, isn't it, than your job. So make sure that your plan is something comprehensive about different things. So for example, I want to get stronger and lighter, and I want to, hang on, let's have a look at this. It's just so I've got a salary goal there, I've got a savings goal, I've got some travel goals. At the moment my travel goals are on hold. I bought a motorhome last autumn and have only been out on 2 day trips so far, which is really annoying. But also things like with relationships, my son lives in France, so I want to go and see him, and then, you know, I want to see my daughter every week. I'm also under achievements. I want to learn to play the piano this year. So I've never played the piano before, and I know I'm not 8, and that's the best age to learn the piano, but I've been doing it for 6 weeks already, and I'm starting to play chords and melodies and stuff like that. It's really cool. So maybe you would have some fun things that you want to do as well. So for me, I've got playing the piano and doing some filming of British wildlife. So I'd like to go out and actually film some animals. So what you can do is you can think of all different aspects of your life and come up with a list of things like you heard mine were health, wealth, investments, Ecology Training UK, achievements, relationships, travel and fun, but you might have loads of other ones that you can think of, and just jot down 3 or 4 or no more than 8 little bullet points of the things that you would like to achieve this year. Okay, so by the way, I'm recording this, so I'm going to be sending the link out. If you're on our mailing list, you'll get the link and I will send it to you, so you'll be able to go through this again. Okay. So it's a great thing to do in January, isn't it? We have our New Year's resolutions and all that sort of thing, but also it's kind of neat to say in 2021 I'm going to achieve this. Okay, so have a go at that and actually try and look at whether these things are also SMART goals. Okay, so has everybody heard of SMART goals? So it's specific, measurable, achievable, realistic and timed. So when we say a SMART goal, there are some goals that are totally unrealistic. So for example, somebody might say, well, I want to have a bat license by the end of the year. Okay, now the problem with having goals that rely on other people and circumstances, like no lockdown and plenty of bat surveys going on in your area, you know, to get you enough experience, then that goal might be a little bit unrealistic. Okay, so what you need to do is say to yourself, right, what could I achieve this year to get towards my bat license? Could I get, say, 20 hours of survey experience, or could I, go on a course about bats and start to learn about bats? Okay, so you put yourself some smaller goals, more realistic goals. Okay, so SMART is specific. It needs to be specific. You can't say, I want to lose some weight. You have to say, I am going to weigh 10 stone 3 or whatever, 21 stone 5 or whatever it is, that, that's what you're aiming for by the end of the year. Okay, so it has to be specific. Or it might be, I have a salary goal, so I can say by the end of the year whether I have specifically earned that much money this year. Yeah. So it needs to be specific. It can't be vague. Otherwise you can't really aim for it if it's not specific. Okay. So that's the S for SMART. Then M is measurable. So measurable, obviously you can measure your weight, you can measure your salary, you can measure whether you've got your bat license or your 20 hours of license work or whatever it is that you're aiming for. Okay, so it needs to be measurable, because you can't have something vague that can't be measured, because then you can't say whether you've achieved the goal or not. Yeah, so SMART is specific, measurable, achievable. Is your goal achievable for the year? Is that something that you could really do? So it might be, I want to read 12 books this year. That's achievable because that's 1 book per month, isn't it? But if you said, I want to read 52 books this year, unless you're a speed reader and you don't have any holidays, any family crises or anything else going on, or, busyness or whatever, then that's a bit less achievable. Yeah. So think about how achievable it is and whether it needs to be adjusted to make it more achievable. Okay, because we want your goals to be achieved at the end of the year and to be, something you can celebrate, rather than go, oh, I said I was going to do this and I didn't do it, So the next one is R, is realistic. So is it realistic? So it's linked to achievable, but it's also making it realistic. So think about our situation with lockdown, think about our situation with the winter at this time of the year, if you're setting goals for yourself at this time of the year. So there are certain times of the year when you can do bat surveys, for example, and you can't do them all winter. So if you said, right, I want to get 20 hours of bat survey experience, you have to bear in mind that it's got to be done between May and September, and then you've got to find 10 surveys to do, because they're usually about 2 hours each, and you've got to find 10 surveys to do. So is that achievable in that time? Yes, it is, because it's like 2 a month for the survey season. So that's realistic and achievable. And then T is timed, and what we mean by timed is that you give yourself a deadline to do something. Okay, so it'll be by, so if you say in 2021, I'm going to achieve this, well, that's fine, because that means by the 31st of December, you're going to say to yourself, did I achieve all of these goals? All right, but some of your goals you might want to achieve earlier than that. Okay, it might be something that you want to do that you could achieve by the end of the month. So some of your goals, you might want to just put in some shorter deadlines for those, because if you stack up all your goals to finish by the 31st of December, guess what happens? You get busy doing other things and you end up kind of looking at it in November and thinking, how am I going to achieve all of this lot, because I've left it. Okay, so it might be good to like stage some of your goals throughout the year. Okay, so that's what I mean by SMART goals. So the other thing that I do, so that's my annual plan. Okay, that's my annual plan. And then at the beginning of the month, I look at my annual plan. And on the first of the month, I've got here my January plan. Okay, so I've got, this is the first of the month in my page a day diary, which I funked up with some acrylic paint. It's cool, isn't it? Do you like it? So I've got some goals to happen by the end of January, and they're linked to my annual goals, but these are the stepping stones, the 12 monthly stepping stones to get towards your goals. Okay, so you go back to your annual goals, and you stick in your stepping stones of what you want to achieve. So if you have a weight loss target, for example, you could maybe try and lose £2 a month or something like that. So by the end of January, you would have lost £2, but by the end of the year, you would have lost £24. Yeah. It might be something, it'll be all your different targets. So for example, here I've got about connecting with my son in France and my brother in Malaysia. I've got some films that I want to finish editing, my weight goal, I want to do a marketing plan. And so there's all sorts of things like that in there that are my monthly goals. Okay. And then every week I have a little think, and on the first day of the week, I will then write down what I'm going to do this week. Okay, so these are the little micro steps that you take towards your goal for the month. So it might be you have to make a phone call, or join the local back group, or do a bit of research, or read a chapter of a book, or it might be something like have a meeting with someone, or have a discussion with someone, or make a plan, or something like that. So you need to then make your goals into little achievable steps, because they say there's only one way to eat an elephant, and that's one bite at a time. So you can't stuff an elephant in your mouth and hope to eat it, but you could eat it in microscopic little pieces at a time. So I'm not thinking that you literally want to eat an elephant, but I'm just saying, if you look at your goal as being a bit of an elephant, the only way you're going to achieve it is to take little tiny steps towards it. Okay. So what I recommend is that that you actually make those little steps up to 1 hour long. Okay, so that it's achievable, so you can schedule it into your week. It might be something that's 2 minutes or 5 minutes or 10 minutes, but no more than 1 hour. Okay, so if it's read a book this week, then that could be a little bit challenging. But if you said, right, I'm going to read one chapter and it's going to take about an hour, that's what you're going to try and do. So try and think about your tasks towards your goals. So every week you should have something that you're doing towards your goals. Okay, and I'm going to give you some tips in a minute about the sort of things that you would want to do if you're going to be an ecologist. Okay, so I'm just talking about the principle of setting goals. Okay, so does that all make sense to everybody?
Yes, it did. Thank you.
Okay, good. So who's been doing goal setting out of my people, my certificate people? Mark, do you want to jump in, and if you unmute yourself?
Hello.
Hi, Mark.
So at the beginning of January, I thought I'd really get on top of all my goal setting and planning. I even bought myself a habit tracker, so it sort of breaks it down to sort of small daily things that you can do a daily thing of. I sort of work to sort of developing a habit through doing it that way. It's kind of like a checklist for each day of like January, February, March. And the best thing is they're blank for each of the months. So from February, I can set new ones for I'm going to say Wednesday, but what's the Wednesday there? March. There'll be, basically they're reset every time. So I can develop a habit. And then once I've got something under my belt, I can move on to the next thing and things like that. But then also I've got... Can
I just show everybody a habit tracker? So this, you can get templates online. If you just say printable habit tracker, you put your habit there. I'm going to talk about habits in a minute, but you just put your habit there, and then every day you tick whether you've done it. So for me, I do like 8,000 steps per day, my 5 fruit and vegetables a day, my 5 glasses of water a day, and things like that. And then I can tick it off. And I noticed you did one with no sweets. Yeah.
It's a struggle.
Habit tracker. No sweets. I was not that cruel to myself. I put 2 squares of chocolate a day instead of 2 bars of chocolate a day.
I found having a year planner as well is really handy too, because
yeah, I've got my year planner.
Write down and it's set in stone then on the thing.
Okay, great, good. So you've got an annual plan, and then you're chunking it down. Okay, thanks for that, Mark. That's great. Okay, so I hope this is making sense to everybody. Would you like to hear my third tip?
Yes, please.
Ready? Okay, third tip is to read. So presumably, oh, good point from Emily Walker. If you write your goals in positive language, you're more likely to achieve it or stick to it. Okay, so I will weigh, da da da. I will pay myself, da da da. so make it really sort of positive. Good point. Thank you for that. By the way, I'm not going to be chatting, keeping an eye on the chat because that messes up my flow. So I will just, if I catch it in the corner of my eye, I'll have a look at it, but I can't cope with chatting as well. Okay, so reading. So if you're faced with a pile of books, so I've got a pile of books here, okay, and I got to read all of these books, you would say to yourself, oh, that's a bit daunting, isn't it? But actually, if you said, right, I'm going to read Secret Network of Nature. If you haven't read this, by the way, you need to put it on your list. It's fantastic. Okay, so I want to read this book, and I could say to myself, right, that can be my January objective. I'm going to read this book in January. And then every day you say to yourself, right, I'll read a chapter a day until I get it read by the end of January. Yeah. So if you do that by the end of January, you'll have a huge pile of books by the end of the year. So this is only 6 books. So you'll have twice as many as this read by the end of the year. Okay, so imagine a pile twice as big. So to get yourself to read is to maybe list your books, decide which months you're going to read them, and then put in your order for your book to make sure you actually have the book if you haven't got it already. So you might say, right, next month I'm going to be reading, here's another one that I'd like you all to read if you haven't read it already, called The Hidden Life of Trees by the same author. So you might say to yourself, right, it's January and I'm going to be reading The Hidden Life of Trees in February, so I need to order that book in January. Okay, so that's actually something that you could put in your plan, because if you spend around £10 a month on reading books like this will absolutely transform your life. And if you want to become an ecologist, you need to know as much as you can about wildlife. Okay. I also recommend the Whittit books. So it's a brand called Whittit. You can see there it says Whittit books. And here's a sample of some of the books that you could read in this series. So what you could do is say to yourself, right, this month I'm going to study badgers. I'm going to get the Whittit book on badgers. So I'm going to read that book. I'm going to sign up for Ecology Training UK's badger course. And we now have an online ecology and surveying course, which you can do any time of year. And it's basically me running my normal taught course, but indoors. So I teach it from my desk, give you the talk that I would give you in the classroom, and then I take you out and I film myself taking you to a badger set and showing you a badger set, how to survey for them and things like that. So you could do that course, and then you could say, right, and then I'm going to go and find a badger set and I'm going to look for badger signs. And by the end of the month, you'll end up being a bit of an expert on badgers. Okay. So that's something you could put into your plan, isn't it? You could say, which species do I want to know about this year? And then grab yourself one of these books. You could also do some online research as well and see what you can find out about things. There's also things like conservation handbooks for some species, like for the dormouse, for example. This is one of the European Protected Species License species where you can work towards a survey license. So you need to know all about dormice. You can book onto our Dormouse Ecology and Surveying course, which again is a classroom and a video of me taking you out to show you how to do a dormouse survey. And you can read the Dormouse Conservation Handbook and become really familiar with everything. And these things are all covered in each course as well. So if there's any relevant literature to read, then we cover that in the courses. So yeah, so how about choosing some topics for your plan and actually saying, right, this month I'm going to study otters or dormice or badgers or great crested newts or bats. Yeah. And another book that I recommend, and I think some of you have read this book, is called How to Become an Ecological Consultant by me. Is there anybody that's read this book that would like to tell everybody if it was useful to you? Anybody? Rachel, do you want to?
I'm happy to speak about it.
Okay, well, I think Rachel wants to talk about it, and then you can as well. Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, so I got that before I actually joined on the certificate course this year. I think I got the book in the January, and then I joined the course in May.
Yeah,
because you had the extra intake. I found it really helpful kind of setting out the stepping stones, like really starting from the beginning, because I had a degree, but I've been out of the ecology field for several years now. I've been in education, and I found it really useful to just kind of build up, okay, where do I need to start? Where do I need to go next? I also use it a lot when I'm writing my CV, because it's got that really useful CV section at the back. So I use that to write my CV and my planning goals as well.
Yeah, we've got a goal setting explanation of how to do goal setting there, and a bit of a blank one in the back as well. So that's all about chunking down and making goals, but it's all ecology related. So it talks about the the books that you need to read and all those sorts of things. Thanks, Rachel. So you found it useful?
Yeah, very useful.
Okay. And who was that said they wanted to talk about it as well? I heard somebody's voice. Yes, Stefan?
Yeah, I contacted you a few months ago, and I read your book, and it made me realise that it's not as daunting, more achievable than maybe I thought it would be to become an ecologist, even though I've been out of that field for 30 years. So that was a good first step for me, reading the book.
That's great. Good. Lovely. That's great. Oh, I'm glad you enjoyed it. So you can get the book either on our website on the online courses section as a PDF, or you can get it on Amazon because it's actually published by Amazon. And if you look out for this green cover, so it's a 3rd edition. You don't want to get the old one. They still have, I can't get them to take the old ones off, but they're really out of date now. So this has been updated in the last year or so, and actually updated last year. So if you look for the green cover, okay. And any of you that are on certificate this year, you're going to get sent that one soon. So bear with us, and you will get it soon. All right. Okay. So there's obviously quite a lot of other books that I could recommend. I really like Oliver Rackham's History of the Countryside. That's something I would definitely recommend to people, because when you go out and look at the countryside, you kind of look at it in a different way after you read that book. Okay, so I definitely recommend that. Another one I recommend is Rewilding by Isabella Tree. As ecologists, we need to know about these things. People are talking about rewilding now, and this is a particular case study of a place called Knepp in Sussex, and it's definitely worth knowing about these, and also knowing that there's actually hope, because in my lifetime, I'm not very young, but the population of the world has gone up from 3 billion to 6.8 billion in my lifetime. And in the last 50 years, we've lost 60 to 75% of our wildlife and wild places. And in some cases, things like wildflower meadows have declined by 97% in the last 50 years. And when you read something like Rewilding, you think, oh, there is a way to get wildlife back. All it needs is us to leave it alone and let it, you know, do its own thing. So it's very inspiring. So I definitely recommend, if you haven't read that one, to read that one. Okay, maybe I'll do a little blog on some books that I recommend at some point, and I'll let you know about that. Okay. I'm also reading one called Rewilding, and I can't remember who the authors are, but they're two guys that work for Ecological, which is an ecological consultancy, and it's a very, very good overview of sort of the history of what our landscape was like and what our wildlife was like, and how it's been decimated by man, and how we can reverse that by actually, you know, giving nature a break and making sure it's connected to other bits of nature and things like that. And you guys that are coming into ecology as a career now are the ones that are going to take this forward from us old fogies and get it done, you know, because somebody's got to get this done. Somebody's got to fly the flag for wildlife, and I hope it's going to be you guys. Okay, so reading, that's my third tip. My next tip is I'm going to talk about motivation. So is anybody finding it difficult to get out of bed in the morning at the moment? let's have your virtual hands up. Oh, so lots of people are not having trouble with that, but some people are. Okay, so so partly it's the whole lockdown thing. Partly it's winter, so we should be semi-hibernating anyway as creatures. We shouldn't be pushing ourselves all year round and running around like crazy things. So it's a good thing to sort of go into a bit of semi-hibernation and regroup and recharge your batteries. We've got Brexit, we've got lots of uncertainty, haven't we? We don't know if we step out of the door, if we're going to die of this dreaded virus and things like that. So it's like quite a scary time to be around, actually. So I think really it's quite difficult to motivate yourself. And if you're indoors a lot, that's also very difficult, because it means that you're not getting out to meet your friends, you're not going out into nature, you're not traveling. I mean, I've missed out on so many holidays in the last 12 months. It's unbelievable. And my poor motorhome has literally just been used for 2-day trips. I was supposed to be away for the whole of the winter. I got my internet sorted out and everything, so I could just go off to southern Spain and what have you. Yeah, so just to let you know a little bit about motivation. So I don't know if you know this, but research shows that you've only got so much motivation in a day. You can't actually keep your motivation going all day. So there might be things that motivate you naturally anyway. So you'll always do this thing because you're motivated to do it. But there's some things that you know you have to do, but you aren't particularly motivated to do it. So what researchers are saying is that it's a bit, has anyone heard about the stress bucket? There's this thing called the stress bucket. And if you're really stressed, you know exactly what that means. Okay, so I'll just describe the stress bucket, and then I'll describe that I'm going to change that to the motivation bucket as well. So we have the stress bucket is where when you're getting really stressed out, so there's this thing that's stressing you out, and then there's another thing that's stressing you out, another thing that's stressing you out, and it all adds up to lots of stress. Okay, so you might be able to deal with a small amount of stress, and most of us can deal with like half a bucket of stress. But if you're, you know, I know my most stressful times in my life was when I was studying my master's, working a 40-hour week, and I had children to look after, and I had to cook the dinner every day and clean the house because my husband, who is now my ex-husband, didn't do anything. And I was so stressed out, my stress bucket was like tipping over, and the slightest thing, like, I don't know, the slightest thing would tip my stress bucket over, and I would just start overflowing, and I would just start getting really stressed out. Okay, so the motivation bucket is similar. So you've got a certain amount of motivation, And if you've got some difficult things that you need to do, then you need to use that bucket of motivation to get it done. Okay. So for example, in the mornings on my habit tracker, I've got that I'm going to do either yoga, kettlebell workout, or aerobics. And you don't need to go to the gym. There's YouTube. Okay, just go onto YouTube. You can have a 10-minute workout, 15-minute, 20-minute. You can have a really hard one, a really easy one. You can do weight training, circuit training, whatever you want to do. There's just loads on YouTube. Okay, so my habit tracker says that I'm going to do at least 10 minutes of exercise every day. And so I wake up in the morning and I'm like, I really don't want to do that. So I said, right, get myself psyched up for this. I'm going to motivate myself to do this because I want to be stronger and fitter. And I'll go and have a drink of water, and I'll, tidy up a bit, or do something, make my bed or something like that. And I'll start my process of getting myself ready to do the actual exercise. Now, if you're still finding it difficult to do that, then they say, if you can do one thing towards that thing you don't want to do. So for example, if you set yourself a target to go and run 5 kilometers, and you get up in the morning and you look out the window and it's raining, and you think, oh, really? I just don't want to do this. So all you have to do is go and get your shoes, your running shoes. Okay, that's your first step. Your second step is, you guessed it, put them on. Your next step is to make sure you're, in the right gear, and stand outside your door and lock the door. Okay. The next step is to start walking. And guess what? That's your motivation. You've actually made yourself do something, and you get on with it. So I find that really useful, actually, because it's very easy to say to yourself, oh God, no, I can't be bothered. I really can't be bothered to do this. I'm not going to do it. And then you end up beating yourself up for the rest of the day because you didn't do it. And then at the end of the month, you had a target to be, X weight or X amount of exercise, and you haven't achieved it. So then you just end up beating yourself up. Yeah. Can you all equate with that one?
Yeah.
Hello. Yeah, so I think this is a good method, actually, is to even with your things that you don't really want to do, is to chunk them down into little bite-sized bits, and it's surprising how quickly it gets you going. And I just want to also mention a person that you might find really useful if you have a problem with procrastination and putting things off. I've got one book and one person that you can go and have a look at on YouTube. Okay, so the book is called Eat That Frog by Brian Tracy, and I haven't got it right here, but it's called Eat That Frog. It's a very famous book. It's sold millions of copies, and it gives you all sorts of strategies for procrastination if you have problems with getting going with things. Okay, so it gives you lots of strategies and tips in there. And the other one is it's a book as well, but the lady is on YouTube, and she's called Mel Robbins. Mel, M-E-L, Robbins with a double B. And she has a thing called the 5-second rule. And the 5-second rule is the moment you start to say to yourself, I don't want to do this thing, you count down from 5 and then you go and do it. Okay, so you go, oh, I just don't want to do this exercise. Oh, I'm going into negative thoughts. And you say 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and during that period you stop that negative thought and you start to psych yourself up to actually go and do your run or whatever it is. Okay, Mel Robbins is absolutely fantastic to listen to. She has lots and lots of tips and short videos, like 10-minute videos. So you could even say to yourself, I'm going to watch Mel Robbins for 10 minutes a day just to get me inspired about getting myself going. So she does this she does this sort of breaking the habit of talking to yourself in a negative way. So she just says, when you start to have a negative thought, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, change. And it totally changed her life. And I think it's definitely worth checking that out. She has written a book called The 5-Second Rule as well.
You gave me a great saying that I've sort of kept in the back of my head especially when I'm feeling overwhelmed. I think was it you that said, how do you eat an elephant?
Yeah, one bite.
One bite, yeah.
Yeah. I think that's the thing, isn't it? Because sometimes the overwhelm is because you've just got too much to do, and you just need to chunk it right down into little tiny steps. Like I was saying about preparing for going for a run, or, you know, let's say preparing to get some bat experience, you might research who the local consultants are and write them down. And then another time you might email some of them, and then another time you might read some books on bats, or, you know, things like that. So you give yourself little tasks towards the end goal. Yeah, so anyway, the motivation bucket is something that you need to think about, because if you need to super motivate yourself to do something you don't really want to do, the best time to do it is when you get up in the morning and like get yourself motivated then and get it done. So eat that frog is really a metaphor for if you have a big fat frog to eat during the day, make sure you eat that frog first and get it eaten and done. So in other words, a big job, a horrible job of, you know, something you don't really want to do. So you eat the frog. And if you have 2 frogs that you've got to eat in the day, you eat the big fat ugliest one first and then eat the smaller one afterwards. Okay, so it's like make yourself do the hardest thing first. And you feel so good when you do that, because you actually feel, yeah, I've actually achieved that big thing that I've been putting off for ages. And you might have put it off for ages and ages, and then suddenly tomorrow you'll do it, just because you've got some other little triggers in your head that will help you to move forward. And another thing with motivation is the habit tracker. So if you're finding that you've got some negative habits, like you could do with, you know, getting up at a regular time so you can get more done. So let's say you normally wake up when you wake up, and from now on you're going to wake up set the alarm for 7 o'clock, and as soon as the alarm goes off, you're going to jump out of bed and you're going to do some exercises, or you're going to, you know, do something useful, not go onto Facebook and Twitter, but like something really useful, like maybe listen to Mel Robbins for 10 minutes while you're waking up, or something like that. Yeah. So anyway, the habit tracker is all about, apparently it takes 21 times to do something before you can change the habit. Okay. And I think it's a bit more than that sometimes, because some habits are so ingrained that you can't really get out of them that easily. So here they've given you a month to do the habit. Okay. So let's say 30 days to get a habit changed. So for example, if you're a sugar addict, maybe you could say, right, I'm going to cut my sugar consumption down, like I did this month, to 2 squares of chocolate a day. because I love chocolate. I could eat a whole bar, but I also have weight targets, and I don't want to deprive myself completely of chocolate. And actually, I've been doing it since I've been doing it on the habit tracker. I found that just ticking that, so I'll just show you. Here it is. I ticked it along here. I've actually tick. I've been very good. So at the end of the day, I say to myself, yes, I achieved that goal of only eating 2 squares of chocolate today. So these are your little mini habits, or your even, you know, health habits or things like that. If there's something that you could do with doing better or not doing at all, then, you know, maybe you could use a habit tracker to have a go at breaking that habit. Okay, because it makes you accountable for it, and you can check up on yourself. Okay, so I hope you're finding this useful. I'm enjoying it very much. I know there's a lot of you. There's actually 64 of us in the room, which is the biggest webinar I've ever done. So I'm very excited. And my fifth and final tip is to be kind to yourself. Okay, so there's this theory that we have around 60,000 thoughts a day, and some people have up to 40,000 negative thoughts a day. So I don't want you to put your hands up or anything like that, but just, are you on the glass half full or the glass half empty side of things. Just have a think about that. Okay, so do you have a lot of negative thoughts during, okay, or do you have lots of positive thoughts? And great if you already have a lot of positive thoughts, that's good. But what I've noticed with some people, and people that I've shared flats with and stuff like that in the past, is there are some people that are really mean to themselves, like seriously mean. And I actually had a boyfriend I was living with at some point, and he made a mistake and he started shouting at himself and swearing at himself and telling himself that he was a really bleep person and that he was rubbish and he was absolutely. So I said, Andy, stop speaking to Andy like that. You're being really mean to him. Just stop it. And he was like, what? And I said, well, listen to yourself. You would never say that to anybody else. You're just being so horrible to yourself. And so I sort of worked on him a little bit, helping him to see that if you talk to yourself in that way all the time, so you're always saying to yourself, oh, you're useless, or you can't do that, or you know, all of those negative things that I know everybody does because we're all human. But if you can try and be more kind to yourself, and even if you're already kind to yourself, be even kinder to yourself, because at this time of the year, it's not easy. We're in lockdown. We've just gone through Brexit. The whole world is in chaos, and it's a very difficult time to deal with things. And the last thing you want is for you to be having a go at you as well. Okay. So what you really want is for you to be your best friend. You to be the one that sticks up for you whenever you make a good decision. Yes, that was a really good decision. Or yes, we had a really good day and we achieved lots of things. Yes, that goal was achieved. I really enjoyed that. Yes, I did my exercises. Yes, I feel better. So really trying to be kind to yourself as much as possible. Okay, so think about whether you're, what you're eating. Are you eating well? Are you honoring your body with good food? Are you drinking plenty? Because dehydration is actually surprisingly debilitating, and a lot of people are chronically dehydrated and actually find that if they just start drinking water, so even if you have a habit tracker that just makes you drink 5 pints of water a day, or depending on how big you are, because I mean, I'm quite small actually. You probably can't tell because you can only see my head, but I'm not that big. So I don't need to drink as much as my husband, for example. So make sure you eat well, make sure you are hydrated, make sure that you exercise, because you can't be in a good place. Oh, Nicola, you need to do your habit tracker and get drinking. She's just put a comment up saying she hardly ever drinks. It's incredible actually, because my husband's a chronic non-drinker, and actually every so often he starts going like this. Oh, I'm exhausted. Oh, can't be bothered. Oh. And I said, how much have you had to drink today? And he goes, 1 drink. Right, get a couple of pints down you, and literally within half an hour he's fine again. And the guy Andy that I told you about just now, he was a chronic no drinker as well, and I used to nag him about drinking his water and stuff like that, and he literally got on my nerves because he just wouldn't drink. And then one day I thought, right, I'm going to watch him today. It was a Saturday and we were both at home. And I thought, I'm not going to nag him today about drinking. Guess when he had his first drink? 4 o'clock in the afternoon. He literally didn't drink until 4 o'clock in the afternoon, by which point he was so dehydrated and crabby, and I'd had to put up with him all day being like that. Like, if you have a tendency, oh, I'm glad to see Miller's plugging away. Don't do it to other people, because if you're a chronically dehydrated person, you are going to be a lot more crabby than someone who actually drinks water. Okay. And okay, you pee more, but just imagine feeling so much better. So I'm talking about, not alcohol. I'm talking about water-based drinks like tea, coffee, milk, juice. And juice is not good because it's very high in sugar, but water is your best one, really. And one way you can actually measure your water is to get one of those big, however many liters you want to drink in a day, a bottle that's that size, and say, right, every day I'm going to drink that bottle. Okay, and then you just go to it every day and you pour your next glass out, and eventually by the end of the day you will have drunk that amount of water. And it really is very important. Sorry, I've got my nurse hat on, haven't I? But health is so important when you're trying to achieve goals and keep motivated. And I really think that, you know, if you're having trouble with motivation, it could even just be something simple like you are dehydrated or you're not eating the right foods. Also, sugar's very addictive. It deprives you of sleep. It makes you crabby. It sends you up on a high and then down on a low. So trying to keep your sugar intake a bit lower is a good idea as well, or very low if possible, and cut it out completely because you get plenty of sugar in other foods anyway. The other thing is to, obviously I've already talked about negative thoughts, but to be a bit of a thought police. So you can use the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 technique if you want to break that habit of talking to yourself, you know, negatively. You say, oh, you're talking to yourself negatively. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hey, you know, and get yourself into a more positive state of mind. And really, also, I found in my life, so I'm not young, as you might have gathered, is that if you're expecting other people to congratulate you and make you feel good and make you feel happy, I've got news for you, it isn't going to happen. Okay, the only person that can really make you feel good is you. I know people can make you feel bad and they can make you feel happy, but at the end of the day, it's your inner dialogue, it's the way you treat yourself, and the happiness comes from being your own best friend. And I had a bit of an epiphany about 20 years ago, where I realized that I was never going to get enough attention. I was never going to get enough congratulations or praise or anything like that. And I started doing it for myself. And it just made such a difference, because instead of saying to somebody, oh, I just achieved that, and they kind of go, oh, okay. If you could say, I just achieved that was amazing, I'm really proud of myself for doing that, then this is where you can start to cheer yourself up, to self-soothe, to self-congratulate, to self-encourage, and all of that thing. So I think this sort of psychology of how you treat yourself is really, really important. So if you achieve a goal, celebrate. Do something like, when we get out of this wretched lockdown, you could say, right, when I achieve that goal, I'm going to go out for the day with my friend and you know, go and do something, have a latte and a cream cake in the cafe or something, you know, something to celebrate, and give yourself treats for achieving things. Okay, so celebrate and cheer yourself on. Just be your own best friend, really, because it's just so much nicer if you can be on your own team. So I hope you found those 5 tips helpful. I'm going to, I don't know whether I can cope with 64 people asking me questions, so I think I might just leave it at that. So can we just have a little show of hands as, have you found today useful? Was it worth you wasting an hour of your time to be here with me? Yay.
Very useful.
Thank you. Okay, I'm glad you enjoyed that. That's great. So what I've actually realized recently is that I'm actually not too bad at giving talks like this and motivating people. So some of my certificate students, so does anybody on my certificate who's done the certificate want to just jump in and talk about how to motivate people?
But you've been brilliant, because you've been sort of picking me up whenever I needed it as well, and it's it was good because of all the time that you get with lockdown and everything as well. Gave me a lot more time to do lots of little bits as I worked towards it, and I made sure to sort of, you know, build myself up as I went along. Like all of this behind me didn't happen in one day. It just happened bit by bit, and as a result, I've got everything, all the resources on hand as a result of just sort of working towards it a little bit at a time, and that's really been uplifting as I've been going on and seeing, you know, it's not about necessarily being to the destination the next day, but I'm always walking towards that horizon sort of thing.
Yeah, you know where you're going. It's like there's an analogy. If you imagine I live down in Devon, if I wanted to drive to Scotland, I can't see Scotland, but I know I'm going to Scotland and I know I'm going to get to Scotland. I probably will have to stop quite a few times. I might have to stay overnight somewhere. I might have to stop and get petrol. I might have to stop and eat or go to the toilet. I might have to, you know, sit in a traffic jam, or I might even have a crash. My tyre might go down. All sorts of things could happen whilst I'm going to Scotland. But, you know, if you don't even know you're going to Scotland and you just come out of your drive in your car, you don't even know whether to go left or right. So the whole point is to have that objective of where you're going, have the big goal, set that, and then take each step as, you know, just take each mile, take the obstacles and give yourself a break every so often, and just remember that you're on your path. You will get there. And the hope for me on this Getting You Motivated webinar was really to sort of give you a chance to think about the way that you're approaching things, maybe give you some new tips and tricks on how to get yourself motivated. And, you know, whatever I can do to help you, really, I've got, we're now one of the top training centres in the UK for ecology training. We've got 22 online courses, and we're going to be doing 35 taught courses next year. We also run the certificate in ecological consultancy, and we now have a full house for March and April, but we're going to be doing a modular certificate for ecological consultancy. So a lot of people have over the years asked if they can do the certificate course, which is a complete training for ecologists over a longer period, like 2 years, and we've just brought it in this week. So because we have all these online resources, and we're now able to do webinars and things. So if you want to train to be an ecological consultant and you're serious about this, then you could join the certificate in ecological consultancy, and we have got spaces now on our modular version of certificate. And for those of you that have signed up for this year, welcome. We've had our introductory webinar, and thank you guys that have been on certificate last year and the year before for joining us today as well. And yeah, it's been good, and I look forward to maybe welcoming you onto some courses soon, because obviously I could have said one of your objectives could be to book onto one of our courses. But of course, you know I do courses. You're all really aware of what we do. So just make sure that maybe one of your goals next year, or this year, sorry, would be to do some more training with Ecology Training UK and get some more skills and knowledge under your belt and join the group. Okay. And so I'm planning actually to do some videos or webinars like this again, but I'm going to probably do them on Facebook Live, which means that basically all you have to do is rock up to my Facebook page at a certain time of the day, and I'll be there talking about something. So I will let you know on the newsletter how to do that. If you're not on our newsletter, then if you email me on ecologytraininguk@gmail.com, we can put you on the newsletter mailing list, and we can be in touch with you when things like this are happening. So I hope you found that useful. I've enjoyed it very much, and go forth and make your goals and get motivated. Thank you for joining me. Bye, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.